What happened when jealousy turned best friends into enemies? I never thought jealousy could rip my life apart so completely. But looking back, maybe the signs were always there. Sophie and I had been inseparables since we were 10. We weren't just best friends, we were sisters in everything but blood. She knew every secret I ever whispered, every crush I never confessed, every stupid inside joke that could make us laugh until we cried. When my parents split, it was Sophie who climbed through my bedroom window at midnight, crawling into bed beside me, whispering, "You're not alone. I'll never leave you." I believed her. But then came Jason. It sounds cliché, doesn't it? The boy who comes between two friends. Except it wasn't just about him. He was only the spark that lit a fire already waiting to burn us alive. I met him at the campus library. He was tall, awkward, with messy hair and eyes that made you think he was always about to tell a secret. He asked for my notes. We started studying together, and suddenly my weekends were filled with coffee dates, late-night texts, and that nervous flutter I hadn't felt in years. I didn't think Sophie would mind. She had her own crowd, her own boyfriend at the time, a musician named Dean. But when I told her about Jason, her smile was too tight. "Be careful," she said, stirring her iced latte until the cubes clinked like warning bells. "He doesn't seem like your type." I laughed it off. "And what's my type?" She shrugged. "Not him." I thought she was just being protective. That's what best friends do, right? They look out for you. Except Sophie didn't just look out for me. She watched me. Closely. Too closely. The first real crack appeared at a party. Jason had wrapped his arm around me, and I caught Sophie staring from across the room. Not just staring, glaring. Her eyes narrowed in a way I'd never seen before. I smiled at her, raised my drink like a toast. She didn't smile back. Later that night, when Jason went to grab us another round, Sophie pulled me into the bathroom. Her grip was bruising. "You need to stop this," she hissed. "Stop what?" "Whatever this thing is with him. It's not good for you." I laughed nervously. "You sound like my mom." She leaned closer, her breath hot against my ear. "No, I sound like someone who knows you better than anyone. And I know he's wrong for you. The thing is, Sophie never explained why. She didn't say he was dangerous or toxic. Just wrong. And something in her voice made me shiver. I told myself she'd get over it. But she didn't. She started showing up wherever Jason and I were: movie nights, coffee shops, even when we went to the bookstore on the edge of town. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Until Jason leaned over one day, his voice low. "Does your friend always follow us?" I turned and there she was again, pretending to read a magazine but watching us in the reflection of the glass. I confronted her that night. "Are you stalking me?" I snapped. Her face twisted. "Stalking? God, you make it sound creepy." "I'm just trying to protect you." "From what?" "He's not hurting me." She looked at me then with something I couldn't name. Something sharp, almost hungry. "You don't see it yet," she whispered. "But you will." I should have walked away. I should have ended it there. But Sophie wasn't just my best friend, she was part of me. You don't cut off your own arm because it hurts. You keep it, hoping the pain will fade. Except the pain only grew. The text messages started small. A screenshot of Jason's social media with a vague caption, "Do you really know him?" A picture of him talking to another girl at the gym. "Looks cozy, doesn't it?" At first I ignored them, but they got worse. Photos of Jason's car parked outside my dorm at 2 a.m. when he'd told me he was home. A blurred shot of him at a bar with a drink I didn't recognize. Doubt crept in like poison. One night, after Jason kissed me goodnight, I asked, "Were you really at home last night?" He blinked, confused. "Yeah, why?" I showed him the photo Sophie had sent. His face darkened. "Is she following me?" I didn't know what to say. The next morning, Sophie cornered me outside class. Her voice was shaking, her hands cold as ice. "He's lying to you," she said. "I can prove it." I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I whispered, "Why are you doing this?" Her eyes softened, but her words were a knife. "Because if I can't have you, no one should." For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my best friend. And then, the messages stopped being about Jason. They started being about me. I woke up one morning to find screenshots of my private journal entries, words I'd never shown anyone, typed out and sent to me from an unknown number. "Do you remember writing this?" "Because I do." I tore my room apart searching for the journal. It was gone. That was the night I realized Sophie wasn't trying to protect me. She was trying to destroy me. But the worst part hadn't even begun. Because 2 days later, Jason disappeared. Jason didn't show up to our coffee date. At first, I thought he'd overslept or forgotten. But when my calls went straight to voicemail and my texts stayed unread, dread began to coil in my stomach. By evening, his roommate texted me, "Hey, is Jason with you? He never came back last night." My heart stopped. I tried to stay calm, telling myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe his phone had died. Maybe he crashed at a friend's place. But when midnight passed with no word, panic devoured me. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophie's face, her words repeating like a curse. "If I can't have you, no one should." By morning, I was outside her apartment, pounding on the door. She opened it slowly, already dressed, her hair neat, her smile too calm. "What's wrong?" she asked, tilting her head like a curious child. "Where's Jason?" I demanded. Her eyes widened in mock surprise. How should I know? You've been following him, watching him. Don't play dumb. She stepped closer, so close I could smell the lavender lotion she always used. Maybe you should ask yourself why you're so quick to blame me. I wanted to scream, to shove her, to tear that smug expression off her face. Instead, I whispered, if you've done anything, I'll never forgive you. Her smile faltered for just a second. Then she laughed. A soft, broken sound. You've already chosen him over me. Forgiveness was never an option. I left shaking, fury battling terror in my chest. The police wouldn't take me seriously when I went to file a missing person report. He's an adult, the officer said, barely glancing at me. He's probably just taking some space. Taking some space. That's what they always say. Until a body turns up. The next 2 days blurred together. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. I scrolled through Jason's socials obsessively, searching for signs of life. Nothing. His phone stayed dark. Then came the envelope. It was slipped under my dorm room door. No return address. Inside were photographs: Jason sitting at a bar, Jason walking home, Jason unlocking his car. And one final picture. Jason slumped in the driver's seat, his head resting against the window, eyes closed. On the back of that photo, scrawled in black ink, were 3 words. He's mine now. I dropped the envelope like it burned me. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone, dialing Sophie's number, straight to voicemail. I ran to her apartment again. Her car was gone. The building manager said she'd left earlier with luggage. She'd vanished. By the time Jason's roommate called me again, his voice trembling as he said, the police found Jason's car abandoned by the river, I was already spiraling. I rushed to the scene, but the officers wouldn't let me near. The car doors were locked, the windows fogged. One officer muttered something about no signs of a struggle. But I knew better. Jason hadn't just disappeared. Sophie had taken him from me. That night, I sat in my dark room, staring at my reflection in the window. My own eyes looked hollow, unfamiliar. I whispered his name like a prayer, like maybe he'd hear me wherever he was. And then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. If you want to see him again, meet me where it all began. My throat closed. Where it all began. The park. The place Sophie and I had met as kids, swinging side by side under the summer sun, promising we'd never let anyone come between us. I knew I shouldn't go. I knew it was dangerous. But Jason's face haunted me. So at midnight, I found myself walking toward the rusted swings, the night air sharp in my lungs. And there she was, Sophie, sitting on the swing, pushing herself slowly, a smile carved across her face. The other swing was empty. Where is he? I demanded. She tilted her head, her voice soft as silk. You still don't get it, do you? This was never about him. Then what do you want from me? Her eyes gleamed with something I couldn't name. Obsession. Desperation. Love twisted into something monstrous. I want you to remember, she whispered. You're mine. You've always been mine. And from the shadows behind her, I heard Jason's muffled voice. Gagged. Struggling. My heart stopped. I froze. That sound, Jason's voice low and strangled, clawed through the night air. Sophie, what the hell did you do? My voice cracked, my whole body trembling. She stood from the swing, slow, deliberate. Her hair glinted under the yellow street lamp, framing a face I barely recognized anymore. Calm, too calm. Relax, she said, stepping closer. He's alive, for now. I lunged forward, but she lifted something shiny from her pocket. A knife. Not huge, but enough to make me stop cold. Don't, she warned, her voice sharper than the blade. One step closer and maybe he won't be. I felt my chest tighten until I could hardly breathe. Why are you doing this? Because you made me invisible, she hissed. After everything, we were supposed to be each other's world. Then he shows up, and suddenly I'm, what? A side character in my own life? Her words cut deeper than the knife ever could. She was trembling now, her voice rising. You were mine, my best friend, my everything, and you threw me away for someone you barely know. From the dark, Jason groaned again, muffled. I could barely make out his shape behind her, tied to the base of the slide, his head lolling, duct tape across his mouth. Sophie, please. My voice cracked, softer now. This isn't you. Her eyes burned. It's always been me. You just never noticed. I tried to keep her talking, stalling, hoping some miracle would give me time. You don't have to do this. Let him go. We can figure this out. Together. She laughed bitterly. Together? You don't get it, do you? You already chose him. And now, I get to choose too. She raised the knife. I don't remember moving, just the sound of my own scream tearing out of me as I grabbed the nearest thing, a loose chain from the old swing, and swung it hard. It hit her wrist, and the knife clattered to the ground. Jason thrashed against the ropes, muffled cries rising. Sophie turned on me, eyes wide with rage I'd never seen before. She lunged. We crashed onto the gravel, her nails clawing at my face, her knees pinning me down. She was stronger than I remembered, fueled by something feral. You ruined everything, she screamed, spittle hitting my cheek. Everything was perfect until you let him in. I shoved, clawed, anything to get free. The smell of her perfume mixed with sweat and blood filled my nose, suffocating. For a second, I thought she'd win, that this would end with Jason watching me bleed out under the swings where Sophie and I had once made childhood promises. But my hand found the chain again. With everything in me, I swung upward, catching her across the temple. She screamed and toppled off me, clutching her head. I scrambled to my feet, chest heaving, and grabbed the knife. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped it. Jason's muffled cries pulled me back. I rushed to him, sawing through the rope, tearing the tape from his mouth. He gasped for air, his lips bloody. "She's insane," he rasped. "We have to go, now." But when I turned back, Sophie was already on her feet. Her face was smeared with dirt and blood, her hair wild, her eyes glowing with something that looked almost victorious. "You think you can just walk away?" she spat. "After everything we've shared." She stumbled toward us, arms out like she meant to drag us both down with her. Jason tried to stand, still weak from whatever she'd done to him, and I stepped in front of him, knife raised. My voice shook, but I meant every word. "Come any closer, Sophie, and I swear to God I couldn't finish, because suddenly, flashing blue lights filled the park. Police! Someone must have called. Maybe a neighbor heard the screams. Sophie froze, the light catching her face. For the first time that night, she looked small, broken. But when the officers shouted commands and raised their guns, she did something I'll never forget. She smiled and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "This isn't over." The officers swarmed the playground in seconds. Flashlights cut across the rusted slide, the swings, the gravel where Sophie and I had fought. Jason was still slumped against me, his wrists raw from the ropes, his breathing ragged. "Drop the knife," one of them shouted, their beams blinding me. I realized with a jolt that I was still holding Sophie's blade. My hands shot up, the knife clattering onto the ground. "It's not me," I cried, my voice breaking. She's the one." But when I turned to point, Sophie was already on her knees, hands in the air, tears streaming down her face like some tragic performance. "She kidnapped me," she sobbed, her voice trembling. "She said if I didn't help tie him up, she'd kill us both. Please, you have to believe me." My stomach dropped. "No, that's not true," I screamed. "She's lying. She did this." The officers looked between us, confusion flickering in their eyes. Jason struggled upright, his voice hoarse. "It was her," he rasped, pointing at Sophie. She drugged me, tied me up." Sophie's head whipped toward him, her eyes flashing pure venom before softening again as she faced the cops. "He's confused. He was unconscious. He doesn't know what really happened." The perfect actress. An officer helped Jason into the back of an ambulance, while two others pulled me aside for questioning. My words tumbled out in a frantic mess. How Sophie had followed us, stalked us, sent photos, stolen my journal, and now this. But Sophie was calm, steady, every sob perfectly timed, every tremble believable. She said I'd been unstable lately, that I'd accused her of things, lashed out, that tonight I'd lured them both here. One of the officers raised an eyebrow at me, doubt creeping in. "No, please," I begged. "Check her apartment. You'll find proof. She has my journal. She's been planning this." They exchanged looks, the kind that said they weren't sure what to believe. Then Jason collapsed, his body convulsed, his mouth frothing. Paramedics shouted, rushing to stabilize him. I froze in horror. Sophie's calm eyes locked with mine across the flashing lights. Her lips curved just slightly, into a smile. The paramedics yelled something about poison and overdose. My blood ran cold. She must have slipped him something before tying him up. "Did you see what she did?" I screamed at the officers, pointing at Sophie. "She tried to kill him." But Sophie was already in their arms, sobbing against a female officer's chest, whispering, "She's dangerous. She won't stop until he's gone. Please, protect me." And the worst part, they looked like they believed her. Hours blurred into white walls and harsh lights. At the station, I repeated my story again and again until my throat was raw. Jason was in critical condition at the hospital, unable to back me up. Meanwhile, Sophie sat in another room, sipping water, draped in a blanket like the victim she pretended to be. When they finally let me go, dawn was breaking. My phone buzzed as I stumbled out into the morning air. An unknown number. I hesitated before opening the message. "You'll never convince them. You'll never win. Because no one knows you like I do. And no one ever will." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I looked around, scanning the street, the rooftops, the shadows. Was she out here, watching me? A chill slid down my spine as I realized the truth. The police might think the nightmare ended that night. But Sophie was just getting started. I barely remember the walk back to my dorm that morning. Every sound made me flinch, the rumble of a trash truck, footsteps behind me that turned out to be nothing, even the buzz of my own phone in my pocket. I didn't go inside. I couldn't. My room suddenly felt like a trap, a place Sophie would know too well. Instead, I went straight to the hospital. Jason was hooked to tubes and monitors, pale and still as if sleep had claimed him too deeply. The doctor said the poison wasn't lethal in the amount he'd ingested, but it could have been if he hadn't gotten treatment when he did. A sedative mixed with alcohol. Enough to disorient, enough to silence. I sat by his bed for hours, holding his hand like it might tether him back to me. Every so often his eyes flickered, his lips moving with words I couldn't hear. I pressed my forehead to his and whispered, "You're safe. I won't let her touch you again." But even as I said it, I didn't believe it, because Sophie had proven she could reach us anywhere. That evening, the police called me back in. We searched her apartment, the detective said, sliding a folder across the desk. We found a journal, but it wasn't yours. My breath caught. It was hers, Sophie's. Pages and pages filled with my name, over and over, like a chant. Sketches of me, drawings of us together, always together, sometimes smiling, sometimes bleeding, sometimes bound. The detective tapped the folder. This is concerning, but it doesn't prove she orchestrated last night. I wanted to scream. Didn't they see? Didn't they feel the madness bleeding from every page? Instead, I said, "So you'll let her go?" He looked tired. For now, yes. Without Jason's testimony, it's your word against hers. My world tilted. I stumbled out of the station, the city lights blurring into streaks. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time a picture. Me, in Jason's hospital room, head bowed, holding his hand, taken from outside the window. My blood turned to ice. She'd been there. She was still watching. I rushed back to the hospital, begging the staff to move Jason to a secure room. They humored me, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. To them, I was a hysterical girlfriend unraveling under stress. But that night, just as I started to doze in the chair beside Jason's bed, I heard it. A whisper, so faint I thought I'd dreamed it. But when I opened my eyes, the room was empty except for Jason. The window, though, was cracked, and on the sill, a single folded note. My hands shook as I opened it. "Do you remember our secret? The one we swore we'd never tell? If you don't come back to me, I'll tell him everything." My stomach dropped. She wasn't bluffing. Sophie knew. Years ago, before Jason, before college, there had been a night, one mistake. One reckless secret I had buried so deep I almost convinced myself it hadn't happened. Something that could ruin me if Jason ever found out. She'd kept it all these years, tucked away like a loaded gun, and now she was aiming it at my life. I crushed a note in my fist, tears stinging my eyes. Sophie didn't just want Jason gone. She wanted me broken, stripped of everything: love, trust, safety. And if I didn't stop her soon, she'd succeed. The next day, Jason stirred. His eyes fluttered open, and he whispered my name. Relief crashed over me like a wave. But before I could even smile, he rasped, She told me about you." My blood ran cold. Jason's voice was barely a whisper, but it sliced through me sharper than Sophie's knife ever could. "She told me things," he croaked, his eyes glassy. "Things about you. About that night." My throat closed. My secret. The one I thought was buried forever. The one Sophie promised to take to her grave. "What did she say?" I asked, my voice trembling. He swallowed hard, the machines around him beeping softly. "She said you lied to me, that you're not who I think you are." His eyes searched mine, wounded and confused. "Tell me it's not true." I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but the truth pressed against my ribs like broken glass, cutting me from the inside out. Jason turned his face away, his hand slipping from mine. I don't know what to believe anymore. Sophie had done it. Even from the shadows, she was poisoning everything between us. That night, I couldn't stay in his room. The walls felt like they were closing in. I wandered the hospital halls until I found myself outside, the cold air biting my skin. My phone buzzed. Another message. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was a video. I tapped play with shaking fingers. The screen filled with grainy footage of me, 16 years old, crying, my hands covered in something dark, my voice trembling. "We can't tell anyone, Sophie. No one can ever know." I dropped the phone like it burned me, bile rising in my throat. She still had it, the evidence, the night we'd sworn to bury in silence. And now she was using it. By morning, the video was everywhere, sent to Jason, to my classmates, even to my professor. No context, just that single haunting clip. Whispers followed me through campus. Stares burned holes into my back. When I rushed back to Jason, hoping to explain, I found his bed empty. A nurse told me he'd been discharged early, signed out by his family. No note, no call, nothing. My knees buckled. She had won. She had driven a wedge so deep between us that he'd chosen to leave without even hearing me out. I stumbled back to my dorm, the whispers echoing in my head. And waiting on my desk like a gift wrapped in malice was another envelope. Inside was a photo of me and Sophie, age 12, arms linked, grinning like we owned the world. On the back, scrawled in her neat handwriting, "This is how it ends, back where it began. Just you and me." That night, I knew I couldn't run anymore. If I didn't face her, she would destroy me completely. So I went. The abandoned house where we used to play as kids. Peeling wallpaper, broken windows, the smell of dust and rot. She was waiting in the middle of the room, a single candle flickering beside her. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, her smile soft, almost tender. "You always come back to me." I could barely breathe. "What do you want, Sophie?" Her eyes glistened. "Everything. The way it used to be. Just us. No lies. No him." I shook my head. "That's not love. That's obsession." Her smile faltered, replaced by something sharper. Call it whatever you want, but deep down, you know I'm right. You've always been mine. The candle flickered. My pulse roared in my ears. And then I saw it behind her, tucked into the shadows. Another figure, bound, gagged. Jason, still alive. My heart lurched. Sophie's eyes followed mine. She tilted her head, her voice low and deadly. Choose, she whispered, him or me. The room spun. My heart hammered so violently I thought it might burst through my chest. Jason's muffled cries bled into the silence, echoing off the cracked plaster walls. His wrists were bound to an old radiator, his face pale, his eyes swollen from whatever she'd done to him before. I turned back to Sophie. Her face glowed in the weak candle light, beautiful in a terrifying way, like a saint carved from broken glass. You can't be serious, I whispered. Oh, I'm dead serious, she said softly, stepping closer. The knife gleamed again in her hand, catching the light like a threat. You've spent all this time pretending you had a choice. But you don't. It's him, or me. Jason groaned, shaking his head desperately, eyes pleading with me to choose him, to fight for him. But Sophie's eyes were wet, wild, pleading for something different. For me, for the girl I used to be with her. You don't love him, she said, her voice cracking. You love me. You always have. Remember that summer at the lake? Remember the night you told me I was the only one who ever understood you? That's real. That's forever. Not him. Her words slammed into me like a storm. Memories flooded back, her laughter under starlight, our pinky promises, the way she once held me as I cried. Part of me wanted to collapse into it, to forget everything and just go back. But then I looked at Jason, half conscious, his life dangling by her whim, and the truth seared through me. This isn't love, Sophie, I said, my voice shaking but stronger than before. This is control. This is madness. Her face twisted, the softness hardening into rage. You're lying. You're lying to yourself because you're scared. You'd rather pick some stranger than the one person who's never left you. I took a step forward, my hands trembling. If you loved me, you wouldn't make me choose. You'd never hurt him just to keep me. For a moment, just a moment, her mask cracked. Tears streaked down her face, her breath hitching. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. I can't lose you. You already did, I whispered back. Her scream ripped through the house, raw and animal. She lunged, knife flashing. Instinct took over. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a broken chair leg from the floor, and swung. The candle toppled, the flame licking across the old, dry floorboards. Shadows danced violently as Sophie and I collided, her knife grazing my arm, hot blood spilling. She shrieked, clawing, biting, every ounce of obsession pouring out of her body like fire. Jason thrashed, shouting through the gag, his eyes wide with terror. The flames climbed higher, crackling, devouring the wallpaper. Smoke choked the air. I shoved Sophie back, gasping for breath. It's over, I shouted. She stumbled into the firelight, her face wild, her hair tangled, her chest heaving. It'll never be over, she spat, her eyes boring into mine. You're mine, even if I have to burn the world to keep you. The fire roared, devouring the ceiling beams. Jason coughed violently, the smoke suffocating him. I had seconds. I dove for him, ripping the gag from his mouth, sawing at the ropes with the edge of the chair leg. My lungs burned. My vision blurred. Finally, the last rope snapped, and I pulled him to his feet. But when I turned back, Sophie was gone. Vanished into the smoke and flame, her laugh echoing faintly through the collapsing walls. Jason and I stumbled into the night air just as the house erupted behind us, flames clawing at the sky. I collapsed on the grass, coughing, Jason's arm wrapped weakly around me. Sirens wailed in the distance. I thought it was over, but in the back of my mind, I could still hear her voice, whispering like a ghost carried on the wind. This isn't over. The fire swallowed the house in minutes. Flames lit the sky like a beacon, painting everything in shades of orange and black. Neighbors gathered in the street, murmuring, pointing. I sat on the curb, shivering despite the heat. Jason slumped against me, barely conscious. When the fire truck screeched up, I expected anyone to ask about Sophie. But no one did. To them, it was just an abandoned building going up in smoke. I told the police she was inside. I screamed it, clawed at their jackets, begged them to look. But when the fire died down hours later, they found nothing. No body, no bones, nothing. As if she had evaporated into the night. Jason was taken back to the hospital, this time under armed watch. They gave him oxygen, pumped fluids into his veins, and assured me he'd recover physically. Emotionally, though, neither of us knew. Because Sophie was still out there. Days turned to weeks. Campus felt like a crime scene. Every shadow looked like her. Every set of footsteps behind me made my chest seize. Sometimes I swore I smelled her perfume, lavender and smoke lingering in hallways she couldn't possibly have been in. Jason kept his distance, not because he didn't care, but because the trust between us had been poisoned. Every time he looked at me, I saw the question in his eyes. What did you do that night Sophie keeps hinting at? I couldn't answer, not yet. Then the messages started again. Slipped under my door, tucked into my bag, scrawled in lipstick on the mirror of the women's bathroom. You thought fire could stop me? You'll never be free. Jason will never love you once he knows the truth. The last one came with a photo. Jason, asleep in his hospital bed, taken from inside the room. My heart turned to ice. She'd been there, again. I begged the police for protection, but they looked at me with tired eyes. There's no evidence, they said. No proof she survived the fire. But I knew. God, I knew. One night, I jolted awake in my dorm. The air felt wrong, heavy. I turned on the lamp and froze. On my desk, neatly placed, was Sophie's locket. The one she'd worn every day since we were kids. The one I saw melt in the flames. Inside was a photo of us at 12, arms linked, smiling, and a fresh note folded behind it. If I can't have you, no one will. That was when I realized Sophie's obsession wasn't fading. It was growing, twisting, and she wouldn't stop until one of us was gone. The choice she demanded in that burning house wasn't just a moment of madness. It was a promise, a vow. Him or me. I stopped sleeping. Every creak in the hallway became a threat. Every whisper of wind against the window felt like her fingernails dragging along the glass. Jason tried to convince me to move in with his parents while he recovered, but I couldn't. If Sophie was watching and I knew she was, I wouldn't lead her to them. Instead, I stayed in my dorm, locking the door, jamming a chair under the knob, clutching a kitchen knife as I drifted in and out of shallow, broken dreams. Then came the night everything shattered. It was AM when my phone buzzed. Another message from the blocked number. This one was a video. My blood went cold as I pressed play. It was Jason, handcuffed, gagged, sitting in the back of his parents' garage, his eyes wild, terrified. Behind the camera, Sophie's voice purred like venom. Round 2. Let's see if you choose better this time. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking so badly I thought I'd pass out. I called the police, choking out the words, but by the time they stormed the address, the garage was empty. No Jason, no Sophie, just the cuffs on the floor and a single word spray painted across the wall. Mine. The cops questioned me for hours. Some of them even suggested I staged it. My history with Sophie, the fire, the rumors she had started, it all painted me as unstable, obsessed, maybe even dangerous. When they finally released me, I staggered into the night, heart splintering. Jason was gone again. Sophie had him, and no one believed me. That was when I decided, if the police wouldn't save him, I would. I dug into every memory, every breadcrumb Sophie had ever left me. And then I remembered, the cabin. Our secret place, deep in the woods, where we used to sneak away as teenagers. It was where we carved our initials into the beams, where we swore we'd always belong to each other. A shrine to a childhood bond twisted into something monstrous. I knew she'd taken him there. I borrowed my roommate's car and drove through the night, the headlights carving tunnels into the trees. My chest was so tight I thought I might suffocate. By the time I reached the cabin, dawn was bleeding across the sky. The door creaked open under my hand. The smell hit me first, damp wood, smoke, and something metallic. Blood. Inside, Jason sat tied to a chair, bruised but alive, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw me. And then Sophie stepped out of the shadows. She looked different, ragged, unhinged, her hair matted, her clothes stained with dirt and ash. But her eyes, those wild, fever-bright eyes, burned with the same obsession. You came, she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. I knew you would. You always come back to me. My hands shook as I raised the knife I'd brought. Let him go, Sophie. This ends tonight. She smiled, stepping closer, her own blade glinting in the half-light. Yes, she said softly, it does. And then she lunged. Jason screamed my name. The world exploded into chaos. Her knife came at me in a blur of silver. I twisted, the blade grazing my shoulder, searing hot pain spreading instantly. I swung my own knife wildly, the sound of steel clashing echoing through the cabin. Sophie's face was inches from mine, her breath ragged, her eyes wide with something that was half love, half madness. Why do you keep fighting me? She shrieked. I'm the only one who's ever loved you enough to stay. You call this love? I spat, shoving her back with every ounce of strength I had. This is obsession. This is sick. Jason groaned behind us, thrashing against his restraints. His muffled shouts pushed me harder, reminding me this wasn't just about me anymore. Sophie lunged again, her knife slashing, tearing through my sleeve. I grabbed her wrist, the two of us locked in a brutal dance, the blade trembling inches from my throat. You'll see, she hissed, her voice breaking. You'll see when it's just us again. No lies. No him. Rage boiled in me. Years of friendship, of love, of betrayal. I twisted her wrist hard. The knife clattered to the floor. We both dug for it, grappling in the dirt. Her nails ripped at my skin, her teeth snapping near my ear like an animal. For a moment, she had it. The cold steel pressed against my ribs. Her eyes softened, almost tender, as she whispered, it's better this way. If I can't have you alive, I'll keep you forever. Something primal erupted in me. I slammed my knee into her stomach. She gasped, loosened her grip, and I tore the knife free. Jason's voice raw, broken, cut through the fog. Do it! Stop her! Sophie's gaze locked with mine. No fear, just that twisted devotion, even as blood trickled from her split lip. You won't, she whispered. You love me too much. The knife trembled in my hand. My chest heaved, torn between the girl who once held me through every heartbreak and the monster trying to destroy me now. For a second, I almost faltered, almost believed her. Then I saw Jason, bound and bruised, his eyes pleading, and I remembered every threat, every lie, every scar she'd carved into my life. With a scream, I drove the blade into the floorboards beside her head, pinning a strand of her hair. She flinched, her face inches from death. "I don't love you," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Not anymore. Not ever again." Her expression shattered. For the first time, she looked small, broken, human. The sound of sirens cut through the trees. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Someone must have heard us. Officers stormed the cabin, pulling me away, cutting Jason free. Sophie didn't fight. She just sat there, staring at me with hollow eyes, whispering the same words over and over as they cuffed her. "You're mine. You'll always be mine." I watched them drag her out, my hands still shaking, blood soaking my shirt. Jason leaned into me, weak but alive. "It's over," he murmured. But as Sophie's voice carried through the woods, echoing into the dawn, I knew the truth. It would never really be over. Because some ghosts don't stay buried. And Sophie was no ghost. She was still out there, waiting. That was the day I stopped recognizing who I was.